The Queen has welcomed President Trump and the First Lady to Windsor Castle. The monarch nanny too greeted Mr. and Mrs. Trump in the quadrangle of the royal residence ahead of a private tea. A guard of honor, formed of the Coldstream Guards, gave a royal salute and the U.S. national anthem was played as the U.S. visitors arrived for the engagement. Mr. Trump is the 12th president to meet Her Majesty. The Queen and President Trump inspected the guard of honor before watching the military march past. Mr. and Mrs. Trump will then take tea with the Queen in the castle. The Queen looked elegant in a periwinkle blue coat and matching hat for the occasion, while Mrs. Trump changed out of the 1,550-pound striped Victoria Beckham dress she wore earlier today and into a cream skirt suit for the meeting. Mr. Trump hailed the Queen as a tremendous woman in his interview with The Sun today. He told the paper, "If you think of it, for so many years she has represented her country. She has really never made a mistake. You don't see, like, anything embarrassing. She is just an incredible woman. My wife is a tremendous fan of hers. She has got a great and beautiful grace about her." President Trump and the First Lady arrived at Windsor Castle by Marine One, landing on the eastern lawn, out of view of protesters who had gathered outside one of the castle gates. Earlier Mr. Trump joined Mrs. May in attending a military display at Chequers before a working lunch at Chequers. At a press conference outside the country residence he assured the UK-US relationship was stronger than ever. Mr. Trump held Theresa May's hand and apologized for accusing her of wrecking Brexit, saying, "Whatever you do is okay with us," as the PM's political crisis turned into a love-in. In an extraordinary press conference at Chequers, a contrite Mr. Trump said there was a bond like no other between Britain and the United States and said their indispensable relationship was the highest level of special. Mr. Trump insisted he absolutely believes the US will do a fantastic trade deal with the UK, provided Brexit leaves UK free from interference from Brussels. 24 hours after he said it was dead, looking directly at Mrs. May he said, "I don't know what they are going to do, but whatever you do is okay with me. Just make sure we are able to trade together." Theresa May and Donald Trump appeared together at Chequers just hours after he humiliated her over her Brexit plans that saw several cabinet members including Boris Johnson resign. Mr. Trump used their joint press conference to say the UK-US relationship was the highest level of special as he sought to repair damage caused by his words ahead of his arrival. Much of the focus was on Brexit, and his criticisms over Mrs. May's approach. He denied giving Mrs. May advice on how to deal with the EU, saying, "I did give her a suggestion. I wouldn't say advice. I think she found it maybe too brutal because I could see that. I don't know if you remember what I said. I did give her a certain amount. I gave her a suggestion, not advice. I wouldn't want to give her advice. I'd give her a suggestion. I can fully understand why she thought it was a little bit tough and maybe someday she will do that. If they don't make the right deal she might very well do what I suggested that she might want to do." Mrs. May said, "Lots of people give me advice about dealing with the European Union. My job is actually getting out there and doing it." Mr. Trump gave a long defense of Mrs. May but again said Boris Johnson would be a great prime minister. He added, "He's been very nice to me. He's been saying very good things about me as president. I think he thinks I'm doing a great job. I am doing a great job. I can tell you, just in case you haven't noticed, Boris Johnson, I think, would be a great prime minister." The president said he had breakfast, lunch and dinner with the PM on Thursday, and breakfast and lunch today, and now knows her much better. Mr. Trump said, "I also said that this incredible woman right here is doing a fantastic job, a great job. I mean that. And I must say, I have gotten to know Theresa May much better over the last 2 days than I have known her over the last year and a half. I think she's a terrific woman. I think she's doing a terrific job. And that Brexit is a very tough situation. That's a tough deal." The president also said Mrs. May will do very well in the Brexit negotiations. "She's a very tough negotiator. I have been watching her over the last couple of days," he said. "She's a tough negotiator. She's a very, very smart and determined person. I can tell you there are a lot of people that are looking up now that are saying, gee whiz, she left a lot of people in her wake. She's a very smart, very tough, very capable person and I would much rather have her as my friend than my enemy, that I can tell you." He added, "She's going to do the best. The only thing I ask is that she work it out so that we can have very even trade because we do not have a fair deal with the European Union right now on trade." Pressed on his claims that immigration had damaged the cultural fabric of Europe, Mr. Trump said, I think it has been very bad for Europe. I think that what has happened is very tough. It's a very tough situation. I mean, you see the same terror attacks that I do. We see them a lot. I just think it's changing the culture. It's a very negative thing for Europe. I think it's very negative. Former UKIP leader Nigel Farage, an ally of Mr. Trump, said he was clearly far from convinced by the Premier's assurances. She has obviously told him today, "Don't worry, a trade deal is going to be okay," and he has sort of, with a shrug of the shoulders, said, "Well, that's good news," Mr. Farage told Sky News. But several times in that press conference he said, "As long as we can have a trade deal." That shows me that he is polite, but far from convinced. Tory MP Nigel Evans said Trade Secretary Liam Fox now had to establish what was doable under Mrs May's blueprint. Being handcuffed to the EU on trade is not Brexit and not acceptable, he told Mail Online. MPs had made no effort to hide their outrage at Mr Trump's behaviour towards Mrs May, with Universities Minister Sam Gyimah tweeting, "Where are your manners, Mr President?" Tory backbencher Sarah Wollaston raged that Mr Trump was determined to insult Mrs May, in a sign of the growing chaos in UK politics. Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry also leapt to Mrs May's defence, branding him extraordinarily rude. "She is his host. What did his mother teach him?" Mrs Thornberry said. Today, with the special relationship apparently on a cliff edge, Trump and May met at Sandhurst to watch military maneuvers and meet the Special Air Service before heading off to Chequers, the PM's country house, for lunch on the second day of his 4-day trip. Speaking at Chequers, Trump would not respond to questions about his explosive interview with The Sun but said, "The relationship is very, very strong. We really have a very good relationship." He added, "It's a very productive 2 days. We arrived here last night. We had a dinner, where we have never developed a better relationship than last night. We spoke for an hour and a half, and it was really something." May also made clear she would not be knocked off track by Trump's suggestion she had killed the chance of a trade deal, saying they would be discussing the real opportunities to make it happen after Brexit. Meanwhile, protests over his visit continued, with a giant balloon depicting him as an orange baby in a nappy inflated in Parliament Square, and up to 70,000 people started to march through London. London Mayor Sadiq Khan signed off on the Trump blimp, and the US President last night accused him of abjectly failing to stop the wave of terror attacks on the capital last year. Around 2 miles away from Westminster, First Lady Melania was being given a tour of London by May's husband Philip, starting at the Royal Hospital Chelsea, where she enthusiastically had a game of bowls with Chelsea pensioners and local children. Last night President Trump and Melania spent the night at the U.S. ambassador's home in Regent's Park and were flown by Marine One to Sandhurst to avoid protests on the streets of London. His extraordinary entourage of up to 1,000 staff, a giant motorcade led by his bomb-proof Cadillac nicknamed the Beast, as well as multiple helicopters including Ospreys containing U.S. Marines, followed him there. After a half-hour with soldiers, Trump and May flew separately to Chequers. There, the U.S. President adopted a more conciliatory tone as he sat down for talks with the Prime Minister. Seated alongside the PM at her official country residence in Buckinghamshire, he said, "The relationship is very, very strong. We really have a very good relationship. We had a dinner where I think we probably never developed a better relationship than last night. We spoke for an hour or an hour and a half, and it was really something." He added, "Today we aren't talking trade, we aren't talking military. We just looked at some incredible anti-terrorism things that are being done here in conjunction with the US, and the relationship is very strong. We really have a very good relationship. Right now we are going to be talking about some other things in the Middle East and elsewhere." May said Mr. Trump had done a very good job at the NATO summit in Brussels in encouraging other member states to up their military spending. As it emerged, the UK has ordered up to 200 AIM-120D air-to-air missiles for $650 million. He responded by saying, "The Prime Minister and I worked very hard together at NATO. It was an incredible 2 days. It has never been more united. People are paying. We are 2 of the 5 who are fully paid up, but others are coming along rapidly." Earlier, the White House tried to clean up President Trump's explosive interview, saying he likes May very much and she is terrific. He made no verbal response to questions about his explosive interview with The Sun, ignoring a reporter who asked him if he regrets as he convened talks with May. Trump rolled his eyes and shook his head, signaling that he found the inquiry impertinent.